Last week, I finished reading No Rules Rules by Hastings Erin Meyer. Reading the book makes you relive the past because Reed Hastings tells different stories from early startup years. The book shows his trial and errors when he first started Nextflix and what lessons he learned that made this company wildly successful. This book is filled with tons of useful lessons one can learn. For the sake of this video, I choose to focus on 3 main lessons and leave the rest to you to explore. Number 1. Performance is contagious. With the first burst of the internet bubble in the spring of 2001, Reed Hastings, the CEO of a small, struggling startup, Nextflix, found himself in a difficult position. As the economy crumbled, the necessary funding to survive stopped. He had no choice but to lay off a third of his workforce. He and his HR manager, Patty McCord, made 2 piles of the 80 highly talented people they would keep and a pile of the 40 less talented people who had to go. The next morning, it was done. People cried, yelled, and slammed the door as they left. The office was calm by afternoon. Reed Hastings was terrified that the layoffs would destroy the morale among the ones who remained and bring another storm in no time. A week passed, but instead of chaos among the chosen ones, the opposite happened. The morale in the workforce and productivity increased. People worked better and longer hours and seemed to be happier. Despite the workload of 120, 80 people were doing better and seemed happier. Wow, what happened? To understand that phenomenon, let's look at the study conducted by the Australian professor of the University of New South Wales, Will Phelps. Professor Phelps created several teams, assigning them a challenging task they had to solve in 45 minutes. The winning team members would get a financial reward of $100 each. All teams seemed excited and ready for the task ahead. Little did they know that their professor planted actors who pretended to be a student but had to act in one of 3 ways. A slacker who would act bored and disengaged, a jerk who would speak sarcastically and make fun of other team members, and a depressive pessimist who would say that the task was too hard and not worth the money. He soon noticed that a team with the slacker eventually lost interest in the project. A team with a jerk would become jerks as well and start insulting each other. And a team with a depressive pessimist would literally have their heads on their desk. Will Phelps conducted this study dozens of times and saw that teams with only one performer did worse than other teams by 30% and 40%. Now, let's go back to our original story. When the CEO and his HR manager removed the underperformers from Nextflix, they accidentally improved what they call the talent density. Before the layoffs, the talent density was 80 out of 120. After the layoffs, it was 80 out of 80. Retaining high talent density is crucial to innovation. Hiring the best people possible and removing the underperformers with cold and surgical precision is the key to maintaining high talent density. Number 2, increase candor. Nextflix is different because the executives encourage employees to give feedback to each other. A newly hired employee can criticize a top executive's behavior with no worry of being fired the next day. It doesn't mean, of course, anyone is free to criticize anyone as they please. The feedback must be given in order to help the receiver or help the company as well. In other words, feedback has to be given with a positive intent, never to humiliate the receiver. To make sure that everyone learns how to provide feedback if needed, the management created a guideline called 4A Feedback Guideline, which follows like this. Aim to assist. As mentioned earlier, provide feedback only to assist your colleague, not to get something out of your chest. Actionable. Your feedback must be practical. In other words, you must show the recipient how to fix the problem. Appreciate. Whenever we receive feedback, we become defensive. At Nextflix, feedback is a crucial part of the culture. Therefore, everyone must learn to appreciate when someone gives them feedback and thank them for the help. Accept or discard. You will receive a lot of feedback from people around you, but that doesn't mean all of them must be accepted. Sometimes the feedback is not accurate. In that case, it is okay to discard the feedback politely, thanking the person giving it. Number 3, pay top dollar. The best way to maintain high talent density is to continue hiring the best people in the industry, regardless of the cost. Nextflix is always looking for the best people to hire. Let's say George has a rare set of programming skills, but he is asking $250,000 a year that could be used to hire 4 average programmers. Would you hire George? Netflix actually would give George 30% more of his asking price and continue increasing his salary as his value grows. Most of the time, you don't know that someone is joining another company until it's too late. They show up in your office with their resignation letter and you can't do anything to keep them. Employees meet the recruiters in secret because the act is considered as treacherous and disloyal. But in Netflix, they encourage you to go to the interview. But why? One day, the executive content manager, Ted Sarandos, addressed his team with the following: "The market is heating up, and you will be receiving calls from recruiters from Amazon, Google, and Facebook. If you're not sure that you're being paid top dollar, ask them how much they'll pay you. If they are willing to pay more than what you're already making here, let us know." One day, one of his employees got an interview with a Facebook recruiter and found that they were willing to pay more. Then he gave the number to his boss, and as promised, he got the raise. It's our psychology to look for greener fields, isn't it? People will be always curious if someone is doing better or worse. Instead of preventing the employees from interviewing the recruiters, Ted Sarandos did the opposite. The purpose? He learned the market value of each employee and was able to keep them at Netflix. Wise decisions like that made Ted the CEO of Netflix. He succeeded Reed Hastings from July 2020. To sum up, hiring the best people, encouraging honesty, and paying them well are crucial to building a successful company.